All right, good morning, Suncoast. Glad you're here. My name is Dr. Troy Doucet. I'm one of the teaching pastors here at Suncoast. We're so glad you're with us today, whether you're live in person or watching online. Just a quick announcement. It is the first Sunday of the month, so that means right after following my teaching, if you want to participate in communion, just mosey on over here, and Pastor Brett Watson will lead you guys through service of communion. We also have a couple of baby dedications today, which is awesome, and a baby baptism, which is always gets me fired up. So right after I teach, move over here if you want to participate in that. We are in the second week of our summer series. We do it every year. It's called At the Movies. And before I jump into the Project Hail Mary teaching, I want to talk to the guys in the room. Men, look, I'm going to ask you a question, and you got to be honest, okay? Otherwise, I'll ask your significant other, and she'll tell me the truth, or they'll tell me the truth. Do any of you guys suffer from the same sort of sight loss condition that I have? It seems to happen as we get older. I'm over 50 years old. I'm 51 years old. It's called fridge blindness. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. It happened to me just a couple of nights ago. I walk into the kitchen, I open my refrigerator, and I'm looking for the ketchup. And I am looking everywhere in the doors of my refrigerator. And my wife has settled in for the evening. She's on the couch. She's watching her trash TV, 90 Day Fiancé, which I love too, by the way. And she's just settled in. And I'm like, babe, where's the ketchup for my French fries? Where's my ketchup? And she's like, babe, it's on the left door, right in the center, on the center shelf on the left door. Guess where I'm looking? Left door, center shelf. And I'm like, babe, who moved my ketchup? I'm about to start whipping some butter around here. I don't know who moved my ketchup. So she has to get up. So she's perturbed, right? She has to get up out of her comfortable seat, and she walks right behind me, and her hand passes my face, like grazes my chin, almost like a little sucker punch, you know? And I swear to God, it's like the ketchup magically just phased into existence right where I was looking. Almost like God was trying to teach me a lesson, like, you idiot, she's better than you. You know why God made women last, right? Because save the best for last is basically what we say. But that's what happens. She picks out the ketchup and she gives it to me, and I'm just standing there dumbfounded, and she walks away like, fridge blindness. Now, I know we laugh at that, but the truth is, familiarity has a strange way of making us blind. When we see something every day, every single day, our brains flip on this switch called habituation. We stop noticing, and thus we start neglecting the absolute wondrous things around our life. We begin to look at our spouses, our kids, our blessings. Even sometimes we look at God without a capacity to be amazed anymore. Routine kills perspective. And we can become blind to the absolute wonder that's really living and existing all around us. And here's what I believe. This is not a theological claim. It's not a philosophical claim. It's a personal claim. I believe that when you lose your sense of wonder and awe, you are no longer capable of being changed. If nothing impresses you or amazes you anymore, you cannot be changed. Which is why people get grumpy, because they see the same thing over and over. Oh, there's my neighbor again, whatever. When you lose the capacity for awe and wonder, you lose the capacity to be transformed. That brings us to the movie today, Project Hail Mary. It's a fantastic sci-fi story. Very family-friendly, edge-of-your-seat action. And it's about this high school teacher. Well, he's actually a middle school teacher. Teaches science. His name is, listen to his name. The character's name is Ryan Grace. And he's played by the really attractive Ryan Gosling. Now, what happens in the show, I'm not going to give you everything, but he wakes up from a coma on this little spaceship, and he realizes he's lost his memory. He doesn't even know why he's there, and he starts piecing together things. And he realizes that he's on this last-ditch effort mission, literally a Project Hail Mary, to save Earth from an extinction-level event. But he's not alone millions of miles in space from Earth. He meets another spaceship, and he encounters this alien, a little engineer, this brilliant stone-like, spider-looking alien that he nicknames Rocky. They're from completely different worlds, even though their worlds are suffering from the same extinction level event. They breathe different airs, but they forge this incredible heartwarming partnership to save each other's worlds. But here's where the story is beautiful for me. In the clip you're about to watch, Grace has to go outside of the spaceship to take measurements of this planet that's being formed. And he stands in awe of what he's seeing. This clip is called "I'm Having a Moment." And yet his buddy on the ship, Rocky, is not as impressed as he is with what he's seeing. To Ryland Grace, this is an incredibly wondrous moment. To Rocky, it's just another Tuesday afternoon in space. Watch this clip, check it out.
Wish you could see this, Rock.
Rocky can see. Boring.
What? This is not boring.
Name of planet, Doucet E, is same name as star, plus E. Boring.
I guess it could be a little more evocative.
Astrophase sampler in position. Question?
Yep. Trays are live, looking both ways.
It is time go.
It's time go.
What is Grace doing? Question?
Having a moment. You know, back on Earth, if you discover something, you get to name it. You were technically the first one here, so...
Yes, the name is medium rough texture circle planet.
Okay. Well, if medium rough texture circle planet was taken, we'll just have a backup. Maybe go with something personal.
Personal.
What's your mate's name again?
Name is...
It's okay, I remember.
Need human word for Rocky mate.
Adrian.
Is beautiful.
I love that clip. You guys catch the Rocky? I wish Ryan, if I would have been the director, I'd have told Ryan Gosling to go, when you name it, say, "Yo, Adrian!" You know, the Rocky symbolism there. One man in this clip experiences a moment of life-changing wonder and awe. His partner barely even notices it all. Medium texture, round planet. That's what we'll name it. And here's the thing, as a pastor of over 20 years, I've seen that same phenomenon, not in space, but in sanctuaries. People come, hundreds of people come, they hear the same song, the same sermon, the same stories, and one person will leave absolutely ruined for God, and the other person goes, meh. Isn't that something? Familiarity blurs our perspective. Today we're going to meet a woman in Mark chapter 5 who refused to let routine and familiarity of her situation blind her to what was possible for her life. She's in this crowd of people that are pressing in on Jesus, treating him almost like this holy Hollywood celebrity. She's not even supposed to be there, as we'll see, according to the social and religious culture of the time. But yet she refuses to approach Jesus with the same familiar faith as everyone else in that crowd. She comes with this wondrous sense of worship. And that sense of wonder doesn't just get Jesus' attention, it actually transforms her life. Look at what Mark 5 says about this story. Mark's account says this. When Jesus had crossed again into the boat to the other side, a great crowd gathered around him, and he was by the sea. And one of the leaders of the synagogue, a man named Jairus, came, and when he saw him, fell at his feet and pleaded with him repeatedly, Jesus, my little daughter is at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her so that she may be made well and live. So Jesus went with him, and a large crowd followed him and pressed in on him. But there was this woman who had been suffering from a flow of blood for 12 years. She had endured much under many physicians and had spent all that she had, and she was no better, but rather she grew worse. She had heard about Jesus and came up behind him through the crowd and touched the hem of his garment. For she said to herself, if I can just touch his garment, I will be made whole. Immediately, her flow of blood stopped, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. Immediately aware that power had gone from him, Jesus turned around in the crowd and said, who touched my garment? His disciples said, you see the crowd pressing in on you? How can you say, who touched me? He looked around to see who had done it. But the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came in fear and trembling, fell down before him, and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, daughter, your faith has made you whole. Go in peace and be healed of your disease. Here's point number one, if you're going to take notes today. Wonder transforms worry into worship. Imagine how much worry and anxiety that woman carried. 12 years worth, 12 years of disappointment. 12 years of unanswered prayers, 12 years of every doctor she had ever saw saying no change, 12 years of isolation because of the religious culture of that time, 12 years of wondering in her heart and mind, will anything ever change in my life? You see, here's what psychology tells us, and here's what we know. Worry has the capacity to define people. But this woman was not driven by her worry. She was driven by wonder. There's this neuropsychologist out of UC Berkeley. I follow him. He's an amazing psychologist. His name is Dr. Dacher Keltner. He wrote this book called Awe, The New Science of Everyday Wonder and How It Can Transform Your Life. He's done over 20 years of research on people who have the capacity to experience awe and wonder in everyday things. And he says this, wonder triggers within the human psyche what he calls the small self effect. He writes, when people encounter something vast or wondrous, their perspective of themselves actually shrinks in their own minds. This isn't a negative feeling about oneself or self-hate. Rather, all of your personal drama, your anxieties, and your worries suddenly feel beautifully insignificant in comparison to the grand scale of what you are now witnessing and experiencing. You see, when you have a lot of worry and anxiety, it makes your sense of self feel massive and centered to the whole universe. But wonder and awe shrinks that sense of self and puts it in its proper place. And let me tell you where it's at, not the center. You just sang a song saying what? Jesus be what? The center of it all. Worry, anxiety, all places at the center. But when we get to move out of the center and wonder and awe take precedence, that is actually the beginning of worship. And let me say this, I'm going to do a series on this at some point. We live in a culture that misidentifies everything. We've misidentified the Bible, translations of the Bible, interpretations of the Bible, and so on. And social media has perpetuated this. There is a difference between self-worth and self-worship. Taking those selfies, I call it taking a lonely, because most people are by themselves when they take it. There is a difference between having self-worth and performing self-worship, and you need to know the difference. In other words, psychologists have discovered that we cannot think about our own worries and anxieties in the exact moment we're contemplating the wonder of life around us. The brain cannot simply hold both at the same time. When I choose to live a life amazed, when I choose to live a life of wonder, I'm not saying my problems aren't real. What I'm saying is that I refuse to let frantic worry rule my life. I want to be ruled by focused worship. I want to tell myself, there is a God I worship that is bigger than any problem I have. There is a God that is stronger than any weakness in my body. There is a God who has given me his spirit and his power that is greater than anything that is against me in this moment. That is worship. And when I begin to wonder and live in a state of amazement of this God who created me and who loves me and whose spirit is in me, all of these problems begin to shrink, not magically, not mysteriously, but majestically in the presence of God who's always with me. While science shows us that people can be defined by what they worry about, my God says you have a power in you to redefine yourself through wonder. Listen to what the woman says in the scripture. If I can just touch his garment, I will be healed. That's what we translate. The word is sozo in Greek. That's the same word. You guys ready? If I could just touch his garment, I will be sozo. That's the word for salvation, to be saved. Notice there's nothing about believing anything about Jesus or whatever, or rising, none of this doctrinal stuff we've been given. If I could just touch him, I will be healed, saved, made whole. She had 12 years of experience. That's 4,383 days to let worry be the final chapter of her life. Because here's what worry will whisper to your spirit. Don't even bother trying to get through this crowd. You'll just be disappointed again. But look at what she does. She refuses to let worry speak to her. She opens up her mind to a wondrous imagination. If I could just graze his garment. And let me say this to all my religious friends watching. That's not the language of certainty. That is the language of holy, wondrous mystery. She didn't have a signed guarantee from God that if she touched Jesus' garment, she'd be healed. None of us have that guarantee. That's the language of worshipful wonder. You see, worry will ask you this: what if everything goes wrong? But wonder whispers, what if God is closer than I think, feel, or believe? Worry tells you, what if you do this and nothing happens, nothing changes? Worshipful wonder imagines this: what if healing is still possible for me right now? Worry will fixate on the mountain of what is broken in your life. Worshipful wonder says, I know a God and worship a God who moves mountains. That subtle shift from worry to wonder changes everything. It transforms fear of abandonment into faithful action. It bends my anxiety into anticipation. And it turns frantic worry into focused worship. And here's what I want to say. Before that woman even ever touches Jesus, healing has begun in her body. What type of healing, Troy? The blood didn't stop. No, in her perspective, in her sight. She began for the first time in 12 years to believe again, against all odds, against all the routine and familiarity of her day in and day out life, that something was beautiful in life that could happen to her. Worship can transform worry into worship. Here's point number 2. I love this one. Wonder transforms obstacles into opportunities. Everything about her situation was an obstacle to her. Everything. 12 years of suffering, that's an obstacle. She spent all of her money chasing a cure from these physicians. She had nothing left, that's an obstacle. The enormous crowd standing between her and Jesus, that she was not even supposed to be there participating in this because of her uncleanliness in that social and religious culture. That's an obstacle. But I think the biggest obstacle of all for her was the same obstacle you and I have in our daily life, and that's 12 years for her of disappointment. Isn't it true that when you get disappointed over and over and over again, whether it's a relationship or a job or some situation, when you become constantly disappointed, it has a way of convincing you that tomorrow is not going to be any better than today. But when you open your heart to a sense of wonder and awe, obstacles become a little bit different. You see, I want to say this again. Wonder is not denial of your problems. Wonder and awe does not pretend that obstacles aren't real. Wonder doesn't say this, oh, if I just have a little more faith, if I just read my Bible a little bit more, if I just post more of my Bible studies for everyone to see, if I just tell the world how much I love Jesus, then all of my problems will just iron themselves out. No. Wonder actually looks at any obstacle in your life and says, what if this thing standing in my way is the way? For me to experience all that God has for me and to become that all God wants me to become. What if this thing in my way is the way? You see, most of us interpret resistance and obstacles as this sure sign to stop, halt, wrong direction, turn around, go the other way. Many of us do that. Obstacles represent don't go any further. You're 50 years old, can't go back to school now. You have no qualifications for this job. You don't meet the qualifications. Don't apply. Oh, your first marriage failed. Better not try that again. Your last business you tried to start didn't work out. Don't start another one. Here's the one that hits me. Your kids are grown now. You missed your chance to be the parent you always wanted to be. Oh, you've been hurt by the church before. No need to go back again. You tried to lose weight for 10 years now. No need to start tomorrow. You've prayed about that for years and nothing changed. Stop expecting anything. We all know the story of Helen Keller, right? At 19 months old, she got sick, became blind and deaf. You know what we did to blind and deaf people in that time? We put them in institutions, in hospitals, away from the rest of us normal people. Her blindness and her deafness were absolutely real obstacles that should have defined her life, but yet it was being blind and being deaf that actually became the very conditions through which she changed many people's lives and advocated for people like her. Wonder interprets resistance as an invitation to go deeper. Because here's what I know. God has this habit, at least the God I worship. The God I worship has this habit of turning stumbling blocks into stepping stones. My God turns setbacks into comebacks. And my God turns my biggest test in my life into the biggest testimony of my life. Wonder will change how obstacles get interpreted in your life. When you feel like an obstacle is there to make you stop, often it's an invitation from God to keep going. So many myths and stories that we read about in Scripture point to this, that obstacles are not evidence of God's absence. They're actually signposts of God's activity. Many people we meet in the Bible have an obstacle in front of them that they have to confront so that they can experience more of God and become more of who God created them to be. Moses had an obstacle. His name was Pharaoh, the most powerful man in the known world. You think Moses went, oh, dude, we can't mess with that bro. Can't mess with him. Moses said, no. I know something you don't know. And I live with the sense of awe and wonder of the God I worship. Watch. David faced an obstacle. His name was Goliath. David says, yep, are you talking smack about my God? Watch what I can do, not with a sword or a shield or armor. Watch what I can do with a little sling and a rock. And Jesus faced a huge obstacle called the cross. Death, the most powerful force. And what happened? 3 days later, setback, he came back. Obstacles don't block the path of greatness. They often become the path to greatness itself. And here's my final point today about wonder. Wonder will transform your sight into vision. What do you mean by that, Troy? I want to blow your mind. That's the heart of the story for me, how I interpret this. Everybody in this moment is seeing the exact same reality. Everyone. No one is seeing anything spiritual. There's no clouds opening. There's no dove descending. There's no voice of God booming to just one person. Everyone is experiencing the same reality, but someone is seeing reality different. Someone is not perceiving it the same way. Because here's the thing about faith. Faith is not about seeing something new. And so many preachers want to do that. I want to give you a new interpretation. I want to give you a new creative, cutting edge. I don't need that. Faith is not seeing something new. Faith is seeing the same thing differently. Some of you in here need to pray for God to open up your eyes to wonder, because we get grumpy in life when we see the same thing over and over. It becomes familiar and routine. Like I look at my beautiful wife on the front row. I ask God, new eyes every day, God, because if I see her the same way I saw her 8 years ago, then we're just going to get familiar and routine, and we will not grow, and we will actually drift apart. Because what did I say earlier? Without a sense of wonder, you have the incapacity to change. Wonder says, I want to see the same thing I see every day, but differently, God. Let me see something about my wife that's always been there that I didn't notice before. Watch what will happen to your marriage, bro. And this is where the story gets absolutely fascinating. The woman says, if I could just reach and touch his garment, something will happen. What is this garment? What is that? What does that mean? Let me show you. This is what she's talking about. Every Jewish rabbi would have worn one of these. This is called a tallit. Jesus would have had this on every day he preached. This was a signification that he was a rabbi. All rabbis wore it every day. Everyone who sees this goes, oh, that's a rabbi. I'm glad I don't have to wear one. Now here's the thing. On the corner of on the corner of the shawl, this is called in Hebrew a kanaf. It means corner. And from the kanaf hangs tassels. This is called a titsi. So when she says, if I could touch the corner, this is what she's talking about, this exact area where the tassel would be hanging. If I could just touch that, I'll be healed. Why does she say that? Why does she, like, I just touch his foot, his sandal, his hand, his hair? No, because the prophet Malachi in the Old Testament said this. Malachi was talking about the coming Messiah, and he said, the Son of Righteousness will come and rise with healing in his wings. Now, when we think of wings, we think of a feathered appendage of a bird. No, the word wing in Hebrew is kanaf. It translates corner, edge, fringe, wing. I saw a Jewish man in a synagogue one time. He had his on, and when the rabbi began to pray the Aramaic prayer, he took it and he opened it and he covered his whole family with this. That was one of the most beautiful things I'd ever seen. It's a word picture that how God covers us, even on the fringes of life, on the edge of life, where this woman lived for 12 years. And she said, I wonder if that prophecy is true. And against all odds, what does she do? The crowd saw a rabbinical prayer shawl. She saw a prophetic promise. The crowd saw the hem of his garment. She saw healing in that hem. The crowd saw what was familiar. She saw what was possible. That's what wonder and awe does in our life. It doesn't change what's there. It changes how we see what's there. And that makes all the difference in the world. You see, the crowd had eyesight. She had a vision. Simple sight says, oh, that's Jesus' robe. Vision says, that's my miracle. Basic sight says, oh, it's just another ordinary day in Jerusalem. Vision says, no, today is my day for a healing and a miracle. She touches him, and what does Jesus do? Boys, somebody touched me. Jesus, everybody's touching you, dude. No. There's a difference between wanting to touch me and someone who is reaching for me. What are you doing today? The crowd came with familiar faith. You know what familiar faith says? I've been to church before. I've heard this sermon. I listen to Troy all the time. I know Troy. I've had a beer with him. That's familiar faith. Wondrous worship says, I know, God, you've done this 1,000 times, but maybe today you'll do it for me. I've been to church 100 times. Maybe today is the day I get inspired and my life totally transforms. Familiar faith says, where are we going to lunch after church? Wondrous worship says, what if today something happens in my heart during this service? And perhaps that's what Jesus was restoring. Not just her body, but her ability to see. Because the question is not whether or not God's at work. God is. The question is whether or not we've become so familiar with church and Suncoast and faith that we've stopped having moments of wonder and awe, just like Rocky. Let me pray for you. Father, I pray for my Suncoast family, my friends, my community. God, open our eyes to the wonder of your majesty all around us in the things we see every day but fail to recognize you in. God, open our eyes. Give us a new pair of eyes to live in awe, to live a life of wonder and amazement. It's in the strong name of Christ I pray. Amen. Stand with me, Suncoast. I want to close by showing you something to kind of bring this to a head. There was a photograph a few years ago that went sort of viral for not the reasons I'm going to talk about, but world-renowned, probably arguably the best soccer player in the world. Put this picture up, guys. Lionel Messi came over from Europe, one of the best soccer players ever, and he signed with the Miami Football Club. First time, this is his first game. He's about to score his first goal here. This is a historic moment. But the reason I love this picture is not because of Messi's historic moment. It's the guy behind him. You know who that is? It's David Beckham. Look at everyone around Beckham. What are they doing? Recording, filming, trying to preserve and capture. Beckham is just a few feet away from the action. No phone, no camera, no screen in his hand. Just his eyes fixated on this moment. Fully present, fully engaged, filled with wonder. I've thought about this picture all week because so many times in life we're so busy documenting life, we stop experiencing it. We analyze moments and we miss the mystery in the moments we're analyzing. We're busy filming wonder and we never really get to feel the wonder. Because here's the thing, transformation doesn't happen through observation only, it happens through participation. The crowd captured the moment. Beckham was captured by the moment itself. That's the slight difference. That's what wonder does. I could sit here if I were a physicist or a scientist and tell you as the sun sets on Lido Beach why the colors are doing all the things with the cloud at that particular moment. That's boring. I just want to sit there and go, God, you're awesome. I don't care how it works. That's science. But that it works is filling me with this sense of wonder and awe. And it puts me in my proper place in the universe. And that's where worshipful wonder begins, guys. I'm here to remind you that God loves you today. Now go and live into that wonderful truth, guys. God bless you. Have a great Sunday.